So good morning to all of you. I welcome you to this 8th lecture on big data analytics. In today's lecture, we are going to discuss about the MapReduce fundamentals. We discussed them in the previous class, just a revision on it, since that would be the backbone of whatever we do in PIG. Then we'll be discussing the word count problem in MapReduce. Then we'll be discussing the execution modes of PIG. We'll be discussing the grunt shell and some basic utility commands. We'll be learning how to analyze data stored in HDFS and in the local file system using PIG. We'll be discussing the basic PIG operators for data analysis, that is load, dump, and store. We'll also learn how to execute PIG scripts. We'll learn about filter and for each operators. We'll have a few polls also, so that we can just see whether you are understanding the concepts or not. I would request all of you to take a copy and a pen with you. You may be writing a lot of things. A lot of commands, a lot of description would be there in today's lecture. And if you understand that, then the remaining whatever concepts, whatever topics are left in PIG would be easier to learn. So please do write a lot of things, and if you're using a laptop, then maybe side by side you can write the commands on your own. All right. So I'm beginning today's lecture. In the initial 15-20 minutes, just give me time to explain the concepts, and then as usual you can ask whatever your problems are, right? So PIG, as we understand, is an engine for executing data flows in parallel on Hadoop, right? So parallel data processing model is this PIG. And it includes a language PIG Latin. PIG Latin language, allows you to express these data flows. And PIG Latin has many operators, uh, like the traditional data operations. We have join, sort, filter, and there is a provision for users to create their own functions also. And as you all know, PIG is an Apache source, Apache open source project. That means it's free for you to download it and use it. Then it runs on Hadoop. You must have a Hadoop distributed file system if you are going to analyze huge files. It makes the use of both HDFS and MapReduce. That's important. That PIG is basically using your distributed file system and the processing capability of MapReduce. Even though we write commands in PIG, but they are converted into MapReduce jobs. Okay. And some description about HDFS that you're all already aware of, how files are stored in HDFS using large block size of 64 MB or 128 MB, and how multiple copies of each block are there, so that if any machine fails, then no data is lost. Okay. Now let's understand about MapReduce programming model. It is a simple but powerful parallel data processing paradigm, and each job in MapReduce has three main phases: the map phase, the shuffle phase, and the reduce phase. In the map phase, the application can read, can operate on each record in the input separately. And many maps are started at once, so that even if you have huge files to the tune of gigabytes or terabytes, if you have a large number of machines, your map task can be finished even for huge files under 1 minute. That's very important. One word of advice for all of you: maybe your final exams may be conducted online, right? If they are if they are conducted offline, that's fine. But if they are conducted online, then you'll be facing all these questions there, multiple choice questions, but based on whatever we are learning here. So kindly look into each things, into each of the things that I am discussing with you. Your questions are from here only. Okay, you won't be having questions from Google, so that you can Google and you can find them. That's my promise to you. They would be simple and but fundamental. If you have understood the concept, you would be able to find the answer. You won't be able to find the answer on Google. I've set the questions like this. So it's my request that you discuss all the concepts with me. You work with all the concepts on your cluster. You would be clearing this paper very easily. All right. So kindly, whatever we are discussing, keep on noting it and keep on working on it. You won't need to read anything else to for your final exam or for your concept development. So that's a word of advice for all of you. So we're discussing map reduce, three main phases: map, shuffle, and reduce. In the map phase, the application operates on each record in the input separately. Whatever data is there in your file which needs to be analyzed, a map phase can operate on each record in that file. Okay, and map phase usually finishes under 1 minute, even if the file is huge in size, gigabytes or terabytes. We should have enough machines in the cluster so that we can finish the map phase under 1 minute. And then, like, the second phase is a shuffle phase in which data is collected on the basis of a key. Now, what is the concept of this key? Let's take an example of web server logs. For a website, whenever people are visiting websites, then there is a log record for them from the time they log in to the time they log out, whatever activities they perform on the website. So if you need to check that, if you need to process that, then you should choose user ID as the key, because that would be the unique thing in that. Okay, so your shuffle phase does the same. Your shuffle phase, which is after your map phase, it collects the data on the basis of a key. Okay, and then this is sent to the reduce phase, where all this is summed up and the results are displayed. Okay, to understand these three phases, map, reduce, and shuffle, we'll consider a simple map reduce application that counts the number of times each word appears in a given text. Okay, so we have a text file and we need to count that in that text file how many times each word occurs. Okay, so for that, this is also known as the hello world program of MapReduce. Like we have a hello world program in Java, so this word count problem is considered as the hello world of MapReduce. So as usual, we have the three phases: the map phase, which reads each line in the text one at a time. So whatever text you have, whatever text file you have, all the lines, the map phase reads each line in the text one at a time. Okay, and then it splits out each word into a separate string, and for each word it will output the word and a 1 to indicate that it has seen the word one time. The shuffle phase will use the word as the key, hashing the records to reducers. Okay, and the reduce phase will then sum up the number of times each word was seen and write that together with the word as the output. So this is your word count problem. You understand what needs to be done. Okay, let's understand this with the help of a text file, Mary Had a Little Lamb. So let's have a text file which stores this nursery rhyme, Mary had a little lamb. The 4 lines are there, 4 text lines. So assume that each line is sent to a different map task. Okay, each line is sent to a map task for reading, right? So we understand that for this particular file, we'll have 4 map tasks. In actuality, the map task does a lot of other things. It handles a large amount of data, but just for this example, we are considering that each line is sent to a different map task. All right. Now, once this map phase is complete, the shuffle phase will collect all the records with the same word onto the same reducer. So next we must decide how many reducers we want. Okay. So in this example, we can consider, let's say that we are picking up 2 reducers. One in which all the words start with A to L, one reducer for that, and in which all the words starts from M to Z, that is a second reducer. And the reducers will then output the summed count for each word. Okay. Let's have a graphical view of whatever we are discussing. The first line sent to the first map task, Mary had a little lamb. You can see the output of that map task. So as we discussed, it picks up a word and writes like how many times that word occurs in the text. So you're saying Mary occurs once, had occurs once, and so on. The similar is the case with all the lines and all the map tasks. Okay. So after that, you can see that there are 2 reducers. Okay, there are 2 reducers, and one for the words from A to L and one for the words with M to Z. Okay, so they'll count, they'll total up the things like this. So this is the shuffle phase in which your output of the map task is sent to the different reducers, whatever are there in your problem. Okay, so in your problem you have decided two reducers, one which would handle words starting from A to L, and the next starting with words from M to Z. Okay. Now the actual word count program in MapReduce is a big program using a large number of Java classes and a complex, program. But if we write this program in Pig, okay, it's there in front of you. The lines in the bold are the source code lines. So we have a total 6 lines for this particular problem. In 6 lines, you can perform this task. So that is the ability of Pig, that the lines of code, they get reduced as compared to your Java program. Okay, we'll discuss this program in some future lecture, maybe in our next lecture. So, but we'll run this program today to see the output, right? Let's continue with our Pig Latin language. In Pig Latin is a data flow language. Okay, so there are no if statements, no loops like your traditional programming languages. All right, and this is because traditional languages, they depend on control flow, whereas Pig Latin focuses on data flow. Remember, this is a data flow language. Okay, parallel data flow language. All right, so no ifs, no loops in this different type of programming. All right, so the workflow, the data flow could be simple linear flows like we just saw in the word count problem, or it could be difficult or complex workflows also, as we will learn with our future examples. But to be mathematically precise, we should understand that whatever we are writing in a Pig Latin script, a Pig Latin script would be, a set of statements which execute some given task. Okay, so if you write a set of statements in a file, then you can call it a Pig Latin script. Okay, and whatever you do, it is first of all converted into something known as a DAG, a directed acyclic graph, where the edges are data flows and the nodes are operators that process the data. I repeat, whatever, the first step in your execution of your Pig Latin script is that your script is converted into a directed acyclic graph, where the edges are data flows and the nodes are operators that process the data, right? So that is why it is different from many of the traditional programming languages that you might have worked with or you might have seen. Then Pig use cases. Apache Pig can be used for every business case. Okay, wherever you use Hadoop, you can use Apache Pig also. So it is a widely used big data processing technology. More than 60% of Hadoop jobs are Pig jobs at Yahoo. Twitter is using Pig. PayPal is using Pig for fraud detection and to analyze transaction data. Then your weblogs can be, analyzed using Pig. Many companies are using it. So whatever you are studying here currently in this big data analytics, HDFS and Pig is widely used in the industry. So all the more, the challenge there for you to learn them properly, right? So next is the Pig philosophy. Okay, so the Pig has 4 founding principles which constitute or define the philosophy of Pig. Okay, so let me ask somebody from you: pigs live anywhere. What is the meaning of this philosophy? Pigs live anywhere. What is the meaning of this philosophy? You can raise your hands to answer this question. Pigs live anywhere. What is the meaning of this Pig philosophy? Yeah, I'm waiting for your answers. You can raise your hands. You can, all of you can, this we discussed in our previous class. It's a sort of a revision. So you should be able to answer this. Pigs live anywhere. Many of you should be able to answer it. Only one person has raised hand. Okay, let's ask Rohit Kumar Singh. Rohit, unmute yourself please and answer.
Hello, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Rohit.
Sir, pig live anywhere. It means it can execute on MapReduce, HDFS, and local file system. It can run on anywhere.
Okay, so it should be, your answer should be, Rohit, it can run either on the distributed file system or on the local file system.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
MapReduce is the programming model. Okay,
Oh,
so
yes.
pigs live anywhere means they can be, they can work with files in the distributed file system or in the local file system. All right, thank you, Rohit. Next is pigs eat anything. So you can raise your hands again if you wish to answer this. Pigs eat anything. How does this correlate to our pig philosophy which relates to our data analysis? Yeah, raise your hands, please. Okay. Yes. All right. Sure. Many people have raised hands. So let's see. Let's ask Narinder Pal. Yes, Narinder. Go ahead.
Sir, pig eats anything means that it can process any kind of files, be it meta files, be it any kind of file.
All right. All right. Yes, Varisha. Go ahead.
Uh, Sir, it means that pig deals with all kind of data, structured, unstructured, and semi-structured.
All right. Both the answers are correct, but we must say in our answer that it deals structured, semi-structured, and unstructured data.
Unstructured data.
All right. Thank you, Varisha and Narinder. Next, pigs are domestic animals. So you can raise your hands again. Shaurya, go ahead, Shaurya. Shaurya, unmute yourself, please. Okay. Parth, you can unmute yourself. Parth, you can unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good
So this
morning.
means that pigs they can be easily transformed for our functions, like for our use. It
Okay.
can
They are
be
user friendly, right?
controlled.
You want to say that. All right.
Yes.
What
uh,
about pigs fly, Parth?
yes, sir.
What
So
about this
they can
pigs fly?
process data quickly. Pigs fly.
Yeah, that means that the data processing capability of pig is also very good. All
Yes,
right.
sir.
Thank you, Parth. Thank you very much. Okay, let's continue now. Let's discuss the data types in pig. So we have data types like simple and complex data types are there. Okay. So they are similar to your Java data types, right? So do you remember your simple Java data types? You can see this list now. Except your date time, all the, or the byte array, I suppose, all the things are there in Java as it is, right? And these are the simple data types in pig. I won't be discussing too much into them because once we are analyzing data, all these will come automatically. So you can see that use there. So int is there, long, you can see how you need to represent them and what is the size. Int is 4 bytes, long is 8 bytes, float is 4 bytes, and so on. Big integer and big decimal, they are the same as the Java big integer and Java big decimal. Then Boolean for true false, char array for strings, byte array is for binary data. It stores the data as a blob, binary large object. And this byte array is the default data type in pig. Remember this. If you don't mention any data type for any of your data, then by default it is taken as byte array. Then there is a date time data type which goes like a date first, then a letter T, then the time, and then plus sign to indicate the time zone. So once we are using the date time data type, we'll discuss more about it, right? Then we have complex data types also known as map, tuple, and bag. Okay, and we'll see their usage. Map is a set of key value pairs. Tuple is similar to your row in RDBMS that you've learned. So tuple is synonymous with your row. Bag is a collection of tuples. So we'll be using all these things in our analysis. Whenever we are using operators in pig, these things, these data types will come in front of you each and every time. You'll be using them in actuality. So we will discuss them once once we are analyzing data. These are the examples for your map, tuple, and bag. You can see. So map is a key and value pair. Tuple is a set of fields. Tuple in parentheses. Bag in curly braces. Bag is a collection of tuples, and map in square brackets. Remember this, right? Then other operators in pig are the comparison operators, similar to your Java comparison operators, with one change here, that you have an additional pattern matching operator known as matches. Then the Boolean operators to join your conditions, they are the and, or, not. Also, you'll be using identifiers also to name your relations, your fields, variables, aliases, and so on. Like whatever name you pick up for anything in your pig Latin environment, that would be an identifier. And how you can define or create an identifier, the idea is to begin it with an alphabet, and it can only contain letters, numbers and underscores. So you cannot begin it with the underscore also, remember. So an identifier in pig always begins with an alphabet and only contain letters, numbers and underscores. Some correct and incorrect examples are there in front of you. Also, you'll be dealing with a lot of relations in pig. Okay, so whatever you do in pig Latin, it is in the shape of a relation, and the output of one relation is passed as an input to the next relation. So at all times you would be interested to find the schema of the relation, right? So for that you can use the describe keyword. So just describe, then the relation name followed by a semicolon. Most of the statements in pig Latin, they are terminated by a semicolon, just like your C, C++ and Java environments. Some of them, some configuration options, they may end with a semicolon, or you may not put a semicolon there. All right, so they work without that also. Then next is the grunt shell in pig. So grunt shell, it can be used for submitting your pig Latin scripts. You can test your scripts in your grunt shell. You can control jobs, and you can access the file systems, both local as well as HDFS. Okay. So how to invoke the grunt shell? There are 4 modes in which it can be invoked. Primarily there are 2, like you will be able to use 2. But if you have certain environments like Tez installed on your system, then you can also run it in Tez and Tez underscore local modes. Okay, so 4 modes that the grunt shell can be started in: local, MapReduce, Tez and Tez underscore local. MapReduce is the default mode. That is, if you just type pig at your bash shell, then it will open up the pig in MapReduce mode. Okay. For any other mode, you can choose pig-x followed by the mode. So if you write pig-x Tez, it will start the pig environment in Tez. Pig-x local, that would mean that you're going to deal with files in the local file system. And simply pig would start pig in the MapReduce or the HDFS mode, where you need to work with the files stored in your HDFS. So remember this, that the grunt shell can be invoked, can be started in 4 modes: local, MapReduce, Tez and Tez underscore local. Then there are the fs and sh commands. Okay. Fs command is like while you are in grunt shell. Okay, grunt shell has its own set of commands. So while you are in grunt shell, if you need to work with your distributed file system commands, okay, then you can begin the command with fs. And while you are in grunt shell, you need to work with the bash commands, bash shell commands, you can start it with sh. Okay, the syntax is the same, just begin the command with fs and follow it up with a file system, Hadoop file system command. And same is with your shell command, just begin it with sh. Okay, so we will see these commands. Then there are the utility commands are there. The help command is there. If you just write help on the grunt shell, it will give you a list of pig commands or their properties with a short description and syntax. So you should try this. It's very helpful, the help command, right? Then the history command is there, like whatever commands you are using in the grunt shell, their history is displayed. You can just use the arrow key to see the history, okay? Or you can use the history command to list all the commands that you've used in the current session, right? By default, the commands are numbered, okay? If you don't want to see the numbering with the commands, you can use the -n option. And remember, the history command does not include your commands that start with sh or fs. Okay, all the commands which begin with sh or fs are not a part of your history. Similarly, dump is not a part of your history. All the configuration commands are not a part of your history. The grunt shell commands would be a part of the history command. So we'll see it when we use history command in today's session. Then quit, kill and set commands are there. Quit is if you need to exit from your grunt shell. So you can exit your grunt shell in 2 ways. One is using the quit command. So once you write quit at your grunt shell, it will bring you to your bash shell. Or you can also press Ctrl+D to come out of your grunt shell. Then if you are using some jobs are running and you want to kill a specific job, then you can use kill followed by the job ID. Usually an admin command, we won't be doing much of this. And if you are doing some big processing and you need to set your the reducers count to certain number, you can use this set property, set default underscore parallel 20. That would mean you are saying that you want to set the number of reducers to 20. Okay. Then there are this clear and execute commands. Clear would clear the screen. Execute and run commands we'll discuss today in detail. We have discussed them just a little bit in our previous lecture, but we'll run them with all their parameters, whatever options are there with these commands, right? So I think it's time for us to begin our terminal. So if there are any questions, you can ask. If there are any questions, you can ask, like whatever you have discussed. It's sort of a review of the previous lecture, and any problems you can ask. Everything should be clear to you, and I hope that you are writing whatever I'm discussing with you. As I've already told you, I'll tell you again that this could help you in your online examination at the semester end, the final examination, where you will be having a multiple choice questions based on big data analytics. So all those questions would be like whatever we are discussing here in our lectures. You don't need to cram anything for that. So just the concepts, remember. All right, so I'm going to start the terminal. Okay. What should I do once I'm starting the terminal? I want to work with pig. What is the first thing that I should do? Raise your hands to answer this, please. You see, we need to work with pig. The terminal is there, the bash shell, the dollar prompt is there. What should I do here? Kindly suggest. Okay, some people have raised hand. Let's ask Nikhil. Yes, Nikhil.
सर पिक कमांड यूज करेंगे.
Okay. Stay with me, Nikhil. Don't mute yourself. Ritika wants to answer now.
So firstly, we'll check the services, DFS and YARN services by using JPS command.
Okay. Okay. So let's ask now money. You see, this question is important. That's why I'm asking. Yes, Money, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. After checking the services, we can open the shell, grand shell of pig in any one of the four modes.
Okay. Well, let's take one more question. I'm not satisfied with these answers. Not correct. Most of the answers are not correct. So let's ask from Narinder Pal.
So we'll start the distributed file system first, and then we'll check the services. After that, we'll write the pig command.
All right, I've heard you all. You see, the first thing I'll go with the Nikhil's answer, because the first thing that we needed to see was in what mode we want to start pig. If we want to start pig in the local mode, for example, okay, then we should not be starting any services, because local mode does not require the start of either the YARN services or the HDFS services, or the distributed file system services. So we must decide first what mode, and if it is a MapReduce mode, then obviously we need to start the services, both the YARN and the distributed file system services. So for our discussion in today's session, I'll go with the local mode. Remember, it is started like this. So write pig-x local, and read the execution of this command also very carefully. Just read the execution of this command. Once it is executed, see what it does, what it is trying to do. So it tries the modes, like it tries the local mode first, and then it picks the it tries the local mode, because you have mentioned local, so it will go with local. Otherwise, it will try, if you just write pig, it will try all the modes, and then it will pick up the default mode of MapReduce. Okay, fine. So we are in pig in grunt shell. Okay, Money, it's a grunt shell, not grant shell, right? Grunt is, like pig grunts, right? So that is the name that comes from there. Grunt shell. That means you are ready to work with pig. All right. And here you see, before we do anything else, before I do any sort of command, I would suggest that we go with the 3 basic commands for data analysis, and then we can backtrack to all our commands by using the various parameters, executing the scripts. Let's understand first what we need to execute. Okay, so let's take up a file. I have made a file z1.txt. Okay, I'm opening this file. Can somebody suggest me how to see the contents of the file z1.txt which is present in my local file system? Can somebody tell me how to use, what command to use here to display the contents of my file z1.txt? I've written something in that. Okay. Yes, Mani, go ahead.
Sir, it's a cat command to display the content.
Yeah, spell it out, how to write it.
Uh, Sir, cat and file name.
Okay, I'm not executing it. Anyone who can suggest me whether it will work or not?
Sir, local.
Yes, Ritika.
So before cat, we should use sh as it is the bash script.
Yeah, so this is the right way. While in grunt shell, if you want to execute a bash shell command, it should be preceded by sh. Otherwise, it won't execute. Now it will execute. Okay, so I've mentioned something like this there. Okay, I've created a text file there. All right, Mani, got it now?
Okay, yes, sir.
So I'll go from a scratch with you. Okay, so please note what I'm discussing with you. Very important. That's why I'm repeating it. I'm going to create a file here. Okay, so I'll use the gedit command, and let me create a file z1.txt. It's already created. It will open that file, right? It has opened this file. So let me write some data here. Okay, I'm using tab as the default separator. Okay, using a tab here and using 3 columns to indicate. First one is the roll number, next the name, and then the marks. Okay, then second record, and then the third record. Okay, let me save it and let me close it. I've created a file z1.txt which contains 3 records separated by tabs. Okay, let me display this file for you. The 3 records are there displayed for you. Okay, now I want to load this file. I want to analyze this file using the pig operators, using the concept of pig Latin, right? So the first thing that I need to do is to open up this file and relate it or connect it with some relation name, some relation alias. So I write here a is equal to load and then the name of the file. I'll just do this as a first step and then end it with a semicolon. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that I'm going to load this file z1.txt for analysis, and I'm storing it in a relation name A. Okay, A is a relation name here. All right. So it will load and it will give you some messages. Don't worry about that. If there is some error, you will see it. It will be displayed. There is no error. Some configuration deprecated, messages are there related to your configuration. So don't look too much into these messages. All right. And then you can use describe as we discussed, if you remember. Okay. So I have written DESC and I have pressed a tab for auto completion. So there is a describe and a DESC command. So I'll go with this describe and then A. That means I am trying to display the schema of A. Okay. So as you see, schema for A is unknown. Okay. Schema for A is unknown because you have not mentioned any schema. All right. So your load is just loading the file. What you can do with load is you can specify the format of the file that you're going to use. For that, there are many functions. We will be considering the pig storage function for our pig files. Okay. So here you can mention this. Okay. Listen carefully what I'm saying. I've written it like this. So this load statement now tells me that I want to load the file z1.txt and it is a tab separated file. So by default also pig considers the pig storage as tab separated. So whether I write it like this or whether I write it like this is one and the same thing. Kindly note this. This load statement and the one we just missed, we didn't store it. This load statement without any storage function would mean that z1.txt is loaded in a tab. Is z1.txt is a tab separated file, and if I use this pig storage and in single quotes I write \t, this is the same. Okay, those two load statements are same. Now this file is loaded into the relation A. To see its output on the screen, we use the dump command. Okay, and dump command does not end with a semicolon. You may end it with a semicolon. It will work. It can work without a semicolon also. Okay, dump relation name is used to describe whatever is there in the file z1.txt, and gives the answers in the shape of tuples. So there are 3 tuples, 101, Ajay and 70. All right. Kindly note, I would again request all of you, whatever I am telling you, kindly note it. It would help you in learning, in analyzing, in exams, everywhere. All this is going to be there in your exam, each and everything that we are doing, right? So please work with it. So dump displays the output on the screen, okay? And then there is a for each operator. I'll just discuss 4 or 5 operators and then I will backtrack to certain other commands that I discussed in my PPT. Okay. So then there is a for each operator. I'll write it like a relation name is equal to for each A generate. Let me write star here. Okay. For each A generate star. Okay. First of all, what is the meaning of this for each? This for each is a projection operator, right? It's a projection operator. If you remember your SQL, then this for each is similar to something like select star from table name where condition. Is it similar to this, or is it similar to select column name from table name? Raise your hands to answer this. What is projection? Is this for each which is equivalent to projection that I'm saying? Is it select column name from table name? Do you understand? That is, you can display specific columns with this. Okay, Ritika, go ahead. Yes, Ritika.
So it is select column names from table name.
Yeah, it is select column name from table name. All right. Remember this, you'll be using this for each a lot. So I'm saying from relation A, for each A, from relation A, generate star means generate everything, generate all the columns and store it in B. Okay. All right. So obviously A is having all the columns. So what is the use of B? So let me write specific columns here. To mention 2 columns, you use $0, $1 and so on. Okay. $0 would mean the first field, $1 would mean the next field and so on. So I'm projecting the first 2 fields of the relation A and storing them in the relation B. Okay. If I dump B, what would be the output? It would display the roll number and name only. Marks won't be displayed. Okay. So only the roll number and the name is there. This is for tab separated files. Let's suppose, let me just modify the file that we created. Let me modify it as a important point now. Let me write it as a comma separated file in which fields are separated by commas. This would change your load function also. Okay. How? I'll tell you. I'm saving this. Okay. Now if I use this, let me just clear the screen so that you can see it on a clear screen. Now if I load, this file like this, raise your hands. Will it help me in correct analysis? And all of you should, try to answer this question. If I load this file z1.txt, which is now separated, data is now separated by commas. If I load it like this, will it be a good loading? Will it be a good for, analytics? Okay, Mridul wants to answer. Mridul, go ahead. Mridul, you can unmute yourself.
No, sir.
It's not a good. Okay, what's the problem, Mridul?
Sir, it's a tab separated file. We have commas inside the file.
Mridul, be clear in your answering. What you're saying, what the problem is?
Sir, a file z1 dot text has tab separated file.
Your answer,
We have to.
you know the answer, but it's not correct. You should answer like this, that we are loading the file z1.txt, assuming it to be a tab separated file. Okay, but it is not a tab separated file, it's a comma separated file. So we must,
Yes.
load it like this. If we don't, it would be a problem. So let me just load it without this to see the problem. Okay, thank you, Mridul. So just let me load it like this. If I dump A, you'll be surprised. You'll say, sir, the output is same. All right, the output is same. But the problem is here. Let me now try to project the first two columns. Okay, or rather, just let me project the first column. I now from A, I want to generate just the $0 means the first field, the roll number, and store it in B. Okay, so let me dump this. The output, we have discussed this before also. Let's have a quick answer from some of you. What would be the output here? Some other students, there's so many students. Are you not with me? Or you don't want to answer? The same students. Okay, Ritik is there. Yes, Ritik, go ahead. Ritik, unmute yourself, Ritik.
Yes, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Ritik.
Sir, it would display the first column.
It will display the first column. Just pay
Yes.
attention, Ritik. Once we are using this load statement, Ritik, right? We are not mentioning
sir.
any format about the file. It will be looking at the file as a tab separated file. So while you are storing the records 101, Ajay Sharma, 70, there is no tab in it. So it will consider this complete line as a single column. Got my point?
Yes, sir.
So what it would display?
Right, sir. Right.
What it would display?
I think then it would display the whole.
That's true. You can see the output because it does not understand this file as 3 columns file. There is no tab in it, so it is picking up as a single column file. So what you need to do here is that you need to load
using
it. Yeah.
Yes, using pig storage, then in brackets, comma.
Perfect answer. So that is very important for you to understand. Once you've loaded it properly, and then if you generate $0, it will do it for you. You can see the output now. All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Ritik. I hope the concept is clear that using the pig storage function, that is to see what type of file you are analyzing, is very important. For example, in this case, we had a pig storage function comma. That means whatever is there in the z1.txt file, after every comma, the next thing is taken as the next field. Okay. So if we have 3 values separated by 2 commas, that means there are 3 fields in there. Okay. I'll extend this. You can give a schema also. Right now, we are not given any names to the fields or the data types to the fields. I'll give it a schema like this. Okay. Kindly note carefully. Maybe role, comma, name, comma, marks. Still not a complete schema. Just the names I've given to fields. Okay. I've not given any data types. So if I do this, there's some problem here. I've used the word using twice. I think it should be as here in the syntax. So it is load using pig storage function as the schema, right? So this is fine now. And if now I describe the schema, what it will say, raise your hands. Will it just tell me that it has got 3 columns, role, name and marks, or will it tell me something else also? Now I'll pick up the people on my own. So let me ask Yash Udewal. Yes, Yash. Unmute yourself, Yash.
Yes, sir.
What is the output here, Yash?
Now, sir, it have 3 columns, so it will display each like roll number, name, and marks.
What it will display?
Specified.
Will it display the data or something else? Yes, Yash. Yash, what will it display? Okay,
So it
let's.
will
Yeah.
describe the format of it.
All right. What data type it will display, Yash? Okay.
So
Okay. Let's
we
ask.
have not mentioned any data type, so it will not display any data type right now.
Okay. Let's hear. Mani wants to answer. Yeah, Mani, go ahead.
Sir, it will display the default byte array type.
Yes, very good. It will display the byte array. So if you don't mention any data type, I discussed with you that by default, it will pick up the byte array for all the fields. So role is byte array, name is byte array, marks is byte array. Good answer, Mani.
Thank you.
Then you can specify the data types also here. I can specify role as int, right? Name as a string. So for that we have char array and marks as float. Okay. So I can display like this, and then if I see the schema, it will tell us whatever you just told, Mani, right? So role, name, and they have the data types mentioned here. So this would be the complete load statement for you, right? Here, remember one thing, z1.txt is the file stored in the local file system because we are using pig in the local file system right now. I can mention an absolute path also. This is a relative path. z1.txt means wherever we are, the file z1.txt is there in our, wherever we are currently in the current working directory. So I can also write it the absolute path here. You know, in our home directory, there is a HD user directory below which the file z1.txt is there. So even this will work, okay? And then if you dump, you'll see the output. You can see now 70 is displayed as 70.0 simply because you mentioned it as a float, okay? So this is load and dump. Dump will display the output on the screen, okay? Then if you wish to see store the output in some file, important now, you can use the store command. See how we use dump? We use dump like this, right? In dump, there is no equal to sort of thing. Okay, just now the power has gone, so maybe we have a break in the meeting. You all stay connected, all right? I'll just try to connect it with the Wi-Fi. If you can hear me. Yeah. So dump does not require a relation on the left. Similarly, store does not require a relation on the left. These are the only two operators, dump and store, that don't require an operator on the left hand side. Rest all the operators in pig would require an operator on the left and equal to and then the next operator, right? Remember this. Dump and store are the only two operators, okay, which don't require a relation for storage, okay? So store A into, look at this very carefully, what I'm writing here. The store command is used to store the output of a relation into some file, okay? So this ACET that I'm writing here is actually a directory, okay? And within this directory, 2 or more files would be created which would be containing all the data that you are storing. So when I use this command store A into ACET, it will be doing the MapReduce job and it will store the results in the file. So you can see on screen, you can read this output. It says successfully read 3 records from z1.txt, successfully stored 3 records in ACET, that is a folder, okay? So if I go in my local file system and look for a ACET folder, it's there. Okay, and within that there is a success file and there is a part file. Now look very carefully. The part file looks to you like this: part-m-5 zeros. If there is more data, then we may have part-m-0001 like this. This m here states that this is a mapper sort of file. Okay, so for this particular storage, no reducers were used, only mappers were used. If your application, if your analysis uses reducers, the file would be having a name as part-r-50 like this. All right, and if you just click on this, you can see the data here, and you can see the data here not in comma separated but in tab separated. That means, that simply tells you that this store command that you just wrote, I'll just write it here for you. The store command that you just wrote, by default it stores the file in tab separated way. If you wish that you need to store it in some different format sort of thing, so you can use a pig storage here also. So now you are specifying that store the file in using a commas as the separators. But if I run this command, will it run? If I run this command now, will it run, or will it give some error, or will it give some problem? You can tell me. Raise your hands. If I run this command now, will it run or will it give some error? This also we have already discussed in our previous class. Okay, Ritika, please answer.
So I think ACT directory is already created, so it will give an error.
Yeah, so with the store command, if you are using a directory name which is already there, it will give you an error. Okay, so I'll run it for you to show you the error. It says that output location validation failed, like ACET, this could not be validated because this is already existing. So what I can do is, if I want to use the same name, I can delete this ACET, okay, or I can choose a different directory name, whatever is convenient. So now if I use it, now it will store, and if I go again to that ACET, and if I again open this file, now it would be separated by commas because I mentioned comma as the separator. All right, is this okay? So let's have one or two polls. Let's have a breather sort of thing. Okay, and the next 1 hour would be with a lot of information for you. So if you're ready, I'm going to launch the poll. I'm launching the poll for you. Okay, here it comes in front of you. Please answer quickly. Okay, very simple question. All right, last 10 seconds now. Be fast, all of you. Question is very simple. Last 5 seconds. I'll end the poll now. I'm sharing the results with you. 72% of you are correct. We just saw that store operator by default stores the output in a directory, like we saw the ACET directory. And within those directory, multiple files are created. But by default, it stores it in a directory. That is the correct answer. Okay. Let's go for another poll now. The poll is in front of you. It is very simple. We just discuss it. Okay, I'm closing the poll now. That was easy, I suppose. I'll close it in the next 5 seconds. Quickly attempt it. I'm going to close it now. Some of you are still left. Kindly attempt. So I've ended the polling. 78% of you are correct. It is a projection operator, okay, because it projects columns from a relations. Okay, from all the columns you can pick up certain specific columns. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll just switch back to the wired internet. Maybe we break for a second. Okay. Just give me a second here. Yeah, we are back with it. If you can hear my voice, you can give me a raised hand, all of you. All right, thank you. So let's continue. We have done with 2 polls. So now I think you've understood, all of you, you've understood the 3 basic data analysis operators, that is load, store and dump. Load for loading the file in some specific format and with a good schema where you describe all the data types, and dump to display or dump the output on the screen, and store to display it in a file. You mention a directory and within that some files are created. If it is only a map related job, so the file name would be part-m-5 zeros and sort of like that. Otherwise it would be part-r-5 zeros or 0001 and so on. Okay, so let's now discuss some more commands, how to execute our scripts. Okay, for that I'll be using, I'll write it here for a quick reference. I'll be using this pig-e, pig-f, I'll be using execute, I'll be using run. Along with these 4 types of 4 facilities for executing your scripts, I'll take up some parameters also. So kindly take a copy. I think you are using some copies to note. A lot of things for you to write. Okay. So let's first create a file which will write these commands. A script file. I'm creating a new file for you. Or let's okay, I'll create a new file. Say maybe it's already there. Let's see. Yeah, it's already there. Okay, so let me write here whatever you have done today. Load this using pig storage as this. We just wrote this command and then dump x. So these are the 2 commands which I want to execute. I've stored them in a file p1.pig. So I would call p1.pig as my script file. Okay, remember this. And if I can display it, I can display this file also. Remember, for a pig script, the extension of the file need not be .pig. It's not mandatory, it's not compulsory. Okay, but it is a good practice to use a .pig as an extension for a pig script file. Okay, that's why I've chosen p1.pig. You can go with p1 also, d1 also, whatever name without any pig extension. So these are the 2 commands which are there in your p1.pig file. So if I want to execute this script file, okay, I can use the execute command in the grunt shell. First thing that we learn, execute command in the grunt shell followed by just the name of the file. Okay, so once I write this execute p1.pig, whatever commands are written in the p1.pig file, they'll be executed in a sequence. So obviously the first command is to load, it will load the file, and then dump, it will show you the contents of the file. So I'm running this exec p1.pig, see the output, right? The same output that we discussed. I think all of you must appreciate how it has done this. It has simply executed whatever is written in the file p1.pig. Okay, now let's use the run command. It is similar to execute command. So run p1.pig would give you the same output. Okay, so run p1.pig has given you the same output. All right. So run and execute, they look similar here. We'll see what's the difference between them. Now, you see, I have taken a small script file. All right. But in actuality, your pig script would be having maybe 50, 60, 100, 200 commands, so many things to be done. So if you need to mention the file all the time on your own, it would be difficult. So you can use parameters to specify your file names or your, even your script file name also. Okay. So what I'll do is, I'll just go to this file. Note this very carefully. I'll go here to my p1.pig file. See what I'm going to do here. All right. So here I'll make the change. I'll make the change here. Instead of z1.txt, I would write a dollar and an in. A dollar would indicate that this in is a variable. Okay, that this in is a variable, dollar in, right? So now I'm not writing the name of the file to be loaded directly in the load command. I will pass it from the command line. Okay, is that clear? If it is clear to all of you, can give me a raised hand so that I can see that you're getting what I'm trying to tell you. All right, so I'll save this and just a second. Yeah. Now, if I run this like this, obviously it won't be able to load the file. If I do directly execute p1.pig, within p1.pig we have a dollar in thing. The file name is not there. Okay, so I need to give that file name. So for that I can use this param, -param. Okay, this command needs to be done very carefully. Okay, what is the name? First you must say that you want to give a parameter, so you write -param. Okay, then you write the name of the parameter, that is in. Then what you want to pass to this, then you should write it here. Okay, so you want to pass this thing to this. See how I've written it. Okay, you need to write it exactly like this. I'm going to run it and then I'll come back to this command to tell you if you write it differently what happens. Okay, see it now. Can you see the same output, all of you? All right, I use this command. You see it has given me the same output. It has substituted the value where you wrote dollar in, it substituted it there with z1.txt. The same thing. Okay, what I'm saying is, if you write it like this, look carefully. If you give spaces here, okay, this will not work. It will give you an error. Can you see the error? Once again. I've written in, then a space, then equal to, then a space, then this. Okay, it will give you an error here. Can you see the error? So how you need to write it? No spaces here. Okay, I'm going to run it. It will show you the output. -param option is clear. Okay, the same would be with the run also. Okay, same is with run. It will give you the same output. All right. Now let's do one thing, that instead of giving, like I'm giving the value here, the value of the parameter here on the command line, I can store this in some file. I can store this, all the parameters that I use, I can store them in some file and I can run that file. Okay, so let's see if we have a file for that. I'm opening a file m1. I can create a file or I can open a file m1. So you see within that I've written here in is equal to z1.txt. Okay, you see just like that, no spaces, in is equal to. So my parameter name and value is now stored in file m1. Is that clear? Okay, and now what I can do here is, instead of param, I can give a param underscore file and the name of the file. See now, look very carefully, you can note it down also. So run -param underscore file. So I'm saying that parameter which I need to pass to p1.pig, the parameter would be picked up from the file m1, and you just saw m1, we have the list of the parameter in is equal to z1.txt. So if I run it, it will give you the same output. Okay, and if I execute it also, it will give me the same output. So if we are clear with this run execute -param underscore file, you can just give me a raised hand. It would tell me that you've understood this thing. You must have noted this thing. It would be good. Okay. Your section C and D would be totally based, your online exam would be totally based on actual questions like this. I'm not going to ask you any theory in the questions. Okay, all questions generated by me. So if you just can work with these things that you are seeing, you will answer all those questions. I'm sure about that. Okay. Okay, let's now quit this grunt shell. I'm going to quit this grunt shell now. Just a second. Just give me 1 second. I need to check out something. Just 1 second break for you guys. All right. So let's come out of this grunt shell by pressing Control D. I press Control D. I'm out of this. Now you could execute your pig scripts in the grunt shell. I told you. You can also execute it on your bash shell. Okay, by using this pig-e or pig-f options. Okay, pig-e or pig-f options. All right. So if the same file is there, pig-e would mean that now you would give the command here. Okay, you need to give the command here. A is equal to load z1.txt using pig storage as a comma here. Okay, this is the first command, load command. Okay, and then there is a dump command. So while you're using pig-e, it will give you need to mention the commands in a double quote separated by semicolons. Dump can be written with a semicolon, without a semicolon, that's fine. But if I try to run it like this, it would give an error we saw in the previous lecture also, because a pig without any options would take it to MapReduce and it would be looking for this file z1.txt in my distributed file system. And we have not activated the services, so it won't run. So we must write here pig-x local and then the rest of the command. -e would mean that you would give the list of commands in double quotes separated by semicolons. Okay, so let's run this. So we'll see the same output here, whatever we saw in the previous run and execute commands. All right, the same output is there, you can see. All right, I'm going to change it now. Instead of this option here, you could also have given simply -f here and the name of your script file. Okay, the name of your script file, this command. Will it run right now? Remember what is there in our p1.pig? We have not given the file name there, z1.txt. I'm saying that this command, if I run now, will not run. Okay, simply because if we see the contents of our p1.pig file, no, without shell, yeah. So it is there. So let me just change it here. We'll run it with all the possibilities, everything, it should run with everything. So here now I'm giving it z1.txt, I'm giving this command here. Okay, and I'll just store. Now if we run it, kindly note how it runs now. Run it with -f and then the name of the script file. So what I'm saying is start the pig in local mode and execute this script file p1.pig. For that the parameter is -f. Okay, let's run it. So it will give you the same output that you just saw. It will execute the script file and give you the output. Okay, the output is there in front of you. Even if you go without this -f in latest version of pig 0.14 and onwards, it goes without -f also. Just need to mention the script file, that's it. So mention the script file, it will do the same that it did with -f option. All right, this is this. Now let's again change our file. I hope you are noting, all of you. You need to work it on your own also. Let's put it $in here. Okay, again I've given a parameter here. Okay, so now how to mention this? Now you must write after this local hyphen param space in equal to z1.txt. That's it. So now what does it mean? Start pig in local mode, pass this parameter into the file p1.pig. You can use a -f here also. I'm giving you time to note it down, please. You can use it like this also, without -f also. Will give you the same output. Right? You go without -f, even then it will work. All right. And then the last one, param underscore file. So I can put a param underscore file here. I can give the name of the file. Somebody's raised a hand. It's by default. Just a second. Yes, Yash, unmute yourself. Yes, Jalani, you raised your hand. Yash, can you unmute yourself? Is it by fault? Just like that. Okay. So what I'm trying to write here in this is that I'll be executing starting pig in local mode. I'll be executing this script file p1.pig. Whatever variables parameters are required here would be provided this parameter file m1. Okay, so the output again would be the same. All right. I hope that you've understood it. If you have understood all the things, you need to practice it for sure. Okay. I'll put this video also on my channel, but you need to practice it. If for the first time, in the first discussion with me, if you've understood it, kindly give me a raised hand, all of you, so that I can move ahead with the next topic. All of you, that's a good exercise, raising your hands. All right, I get it. Thank you very much. Lower your hands, please. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, now next, let's have a simple poll, another poll that will keep you interested, that you're doing something. So I'll just stop this previous share. Okay, it's a simple question. Answer it carefully, okay? The question is there in front of you now. I would request read the question carefully, okay? You've just done it using so many things, so many types. Okay, 10 seconds more now. 5 seconds. I'm going to end this poll now. Finish it fast, please. Ending this now. Sharing the results with you. The answer should be a parameter. Hyphen param means a parameter. Hyphen param underscore file means a file. With param, you cannot pass a file. You cannot pass a parameter and file both. Okay, so the correct answer is parameter. 62% of you have answered it correctly. Okay. All right. I'll close this poll now. Let's move ahead now. Let's. I hope all these things are clear. I'll just open up this. I'll just go through this so that you are clear that you understood. Yeah, history command we didn't see once again, but otherwise pig-ef, param underscore file, the load operator, we have done this all right. Let's get back here. Let's now discuss the filter command. Okay, so filter is, you know what filtering is. So out of the total, you know, the data that we have in a relation, we want to filter out certain data. All right, so how to filter it out? Using the filter operator. Okay, so filter operator, how it is used? Let's first see, go to our grunt shell in the local mode. Let's start the grunt shell in the local mode. And let's load the relation. That's fine, I think. The z1.txt relation, let's load it. It's loaded. Let's see whether it is correctly there. Dump x. So these are the 3 rows in our z1.txt file. I'm going to switch to you to a bigger data set in the next 5 minutes so that you can really appreciate the processing. All right. So let's have a few filter commands with this. So filter is, you need to put some condition, like the where clause of your SQL. Here in Pig, we have a filter to filter out or pick up the records selectively. Okay, based on some condition. All right. So how to write it? Say A is equal to, the syntax would be the same, you know, on the left hand side there would be a relation, and on the right hand side you will use the next operator. Okay, this would be for all the Pig operators except the 2 I told you, that is the dump and the store. There's nothing on the left of dump and store operators. So if A is equal to filter x, then you use the word by, then you put some condition. Okay, let's say by $0 equal to 101. Okay, it says it's incorrect. What's incorrect here? Can somebody suggest? You see, if you get some error like this, it will give you some error code, error 1200, line 2, column 18. What is the error? Can somebody suggest? I just wrote a query. I want to filter the relation x by $0 equal to 101. So can somebody out of you suggest me, like, what's the problem here? आप लोग तो अच्छे प्रोग्रामर हो, इतनी प्रोग्रामिंग जावा भी सीख रहे हो. Yes, Ritika. Yes, Ritika, unmute yourself.
So I think there should be double equals to for comparing.
All right, so we have a comparison operator as double equal to. Perfect answer. So now it won't give you any complaint. Okay, so it has filtered your relation x by, it will look for the first column for values equal to 101. So how many rows would result here, which would be stored in A? If I dump A, how many rows? Can somebody tell me? 1 row, right? Let me first dump x for you so that you can see the, you dump x, it's 101, Ajay 70, 102. So $0 में 101 एक ही है, right? So now if you dump A, so it's 101. It has filtered out, you know. So you use this filter x by $0 equal to this. So this is equivalent to your SQL query. Select this from this where role equal to 101, right? Remember that query? So the same queries are now coming in front of you, but these queries are very powerful simply because they can take care of millions of records in a few seconds, or even a few milliseconds. I'll show you today a simple snapshot of a huge data set so that you appreciate the processing power of Pig. All right. So let me add something more here. Say if I use here $2 is greater than 54. Okay. Filter X by $2 greater than 54. So now it will be focusing on the third field, that is the marks field. Okay. So I've named it so I can use marks also. Not that I need to go with $2 and $0 all the time. So by marks greater than 54. Okay. See what message it has given. So it says implicit cast to float 1 times. Okay. So because you've given it as a float, it will cast it. You've not written marks greater than 54.0. That's why it is saying that it will implicitly cast it to float. Okay. And now if you dump A, let's see how many rows you get. You get 2 rows which are greater than 54. So if we dump X here, I'm just correlating so that you see the output is okay. We have 3 students marks 70, 56 and 53. And we wrote this query, marks greater than 54. So obviously 2 rows are there, the first 2 ones which should result. So if you dump here A, it would give you the 2 rows there. All right, is that fine? This is your filter command. Okay. Now, if I give you a query, if I'm giving you a simple query to begin with, to begin analysis. Okay, listen carefully, you can write it. From this file z1.txt, which we have loaded in this relation here. We have loaded it in this relation X. Okay. I want you to display the name and marks of the student who scored more than 54 marks. I repeat, I want to display the name and marks of the student or students who scored more than 54 marks. जिनके मार्क्स 54 से ज्यादा हैं, उनका नेम और मार्क्स डिस्प्ले करने हैं. I give you 2 minutes to think on it and then we'll discuss it. I want answers on this from all of you. Thank you. Come on, all of you are good programmers. When you go to join some company, they'll be getting a lot of projects, lot of queries from you. Remember this thing, I've told you this thing in the previous semester also. If you are good in programming, in databases, you will be sought after by many companies. So no hands raised. Shall I take it that you can't answer this? Mridul is there, all right. Yes, Mridul, go ahead. Mridul, you can unmute yourself to answer, please.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please answer, Mridul. What to do? Don't tell me क्या कैसे करना है. Just tell me क्या steps करने हैं. एक पहला कर लिया मैंने, right? Load कर दिया. अब क्या करूँ आगे?
Yes, sir. सर फिर for each लगा के
पहले for each लगा दूं?
Yes, sir.
पहले filter ना कर लूं? You see, projection is usually at the end. पहले filter कर लेता हूं, right? So मैं इसको पहले filter कर लेता हूं A में, ठीक है? Filter X by marks greater than 54. This is the filter. ठीक है? तो ये अब filtered records आ गए relation A में. अब B के अंदर इसको project कर लेता हूँ. B for each A. अब क्या करना है? A जो है उसमें से कौन से कॉलम्स निकालने हैं? फर्स्ट टू नहीं, नेम एंड मार्क्स. ठीक है ना? हाँ, नेम एंड मार्क्स. ठीक है, तो डंप कर दो. That's it. That's what needed to be done. It's a data flow language, you see, all of you. So you must see what sequence should be there. It's not difficult at all, but you need to plan. Sometimes there would be 10 operations for a query. So what? Just go in the flow. All right. So I will now switch you to do you remember the emp and the department tables in SQL that we covered last semester? We worked so much with those operators. I think आपको तो उनके columns और सब याद भी होंगे. Emp number, e-name, hire date, sal, job, commission, department number. याद आया कि नहीं? अगर याद आ गया तो you can raise your hands. We worked so much with that in our SQL RDBMS, है ना? We did work, right? And then we had this lockdown, so we couldn't discuss it. You know, we discussed it through some videos. So now again, I'll be discussing those same data sets. They are so useful. They can be used for any analysis in any environment. Lower your hands now. Lower your hands. Thank you very much. So you see, you can get these data sets from internet. आप Google कीजिए that you want emp data set, you'll get it. You want department data set, you'll get it. Okay, I'm showing it here to you. Let's display it. Shell cat. I've stored it in this file emp.txt. I think now you are refreshed. Smith, Ellen, Martin, याद आ गया सब कुछ? The same data set. So let's repeat their columns. You can write it also if you've forgotten. 7369, the first is the emp number, right? Emp number. Next Smith is the name. Next is the job. Okay. Next is the employee number of the employee who is the manager of this. Okay. So 7902 is the manager of 7369. Please look on the data set very carefully. The fourth column, that is the MGR column. That is the employee number of the manager of this employee. So can somebody tell me by raising hands, who is the manager of Clark? Quick answer. Let's see who raises a hand first. Who is the manager of Clark? Okay. Go ahead, Rajat. Unmute yourself.
Sir, Ford.
Is?
Ford, sir.
मैनेजर ऑफ क्लार्क. देखो ध्यान से, ये क्लार्क
Ford.
है, ये क्लार्क है, ठीक है, ये
Oh,
उसके मैनेजर का नंबर है, ठीक है, 7839. तो वो कौन है?
मैं सर फर्स्ट वाले का कह रहा हूँ.
ये हो गया, अब समझ में आ गया?
Yes, sir.
Okay, clear now? Ritika wants to answer. Okay, Ritika, go ahead. Gone. Okay, okay. Lower your hands, all of you. Thank you. So I was discussing this data set with you. We reached here. This is the MGR number. Next is the date on which the employee was hired. At that time, we use hire date as the column name, if you remember. Then next is the salary. And see, in some records, there are 2 commas. Okay. In there, the next one, there is only one. 1600, 300. That means 1600 is the salary. 300 is the commission. 30 is the department number. What is the meaning of these 2 commas? Can somebody tell me? Why 2 commas in the first record? Money is very quick. Okay, Money, go ahead. Money, unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. It means I think null value.
Yeah.
Nothing value is it.
Yeah, null value. Correct, correct, correct. So that means wherever you don't have a value in a data set, remember you will be dealing with a lot of data sets in future. Wherever there is 2 commas, that means one particular column is having a null value. So after 800, we have 2 commas. That means this employee Smith does not get a commission. Okay, and nulls are treated differently. You know it, right? Nulls are treated differently. Okay, so let's see now. Let's load this file. It would be fun because we can do a lot of analysis. I'll use some filter commands with this first, right? So I'm going to load it without a schema, of course. We'll use $0 today, right? So let's take Z is equal to, or let's take emp as the name. That would be more meaningful. Emp is equal to load. Then the file name is emp.txt. Obviously comma separated, so using pig storage, okay, and then a semicolon. So we've loaded this file emp. Let me dump it on screen. you can see all the records in the shape of tuple separated by as in a parenthesis. So these are the tuples that have been returned. The data set is now loaded. So can somebody give me a query? I want to see all the names which begin with the letter S. Okay, all the names which begin with the letter S. So I'm waiting for an answer for you to raise your hands. Waiting for the answer from your side. We need to filter. I want all the records, all the names of the employees to be displayed, which begins with the letter S. Okay. So there in SQL you use like, like, and then in single quotes S, then percentage or underscore, if you remember. So here you use the matches operator. Okay. So I'm writing it here. X is equal to filter emp by which field to see? The second field, right? So $1 matches. You should write like this, S dot star. Here you should write like this. Okay. So this is equivalent to filtering all records, all names which begin with the letter S. Okay. This filter is done. You see what it has done, because you have not mentioned any data types. See, this thing is good about Pig. You not mentioned any schema, and you are comparing the first $1 with a string with matches you are using. So it is assuming that $1 is a char array type of this. So it is casting it to char array by default. You can read implicit cast to char array 1 times, right? So if I dump X now, how many rows would be there? Can somebody predict by looking on the screen? The names are there. How many names would be there? You see, if you don't correlate your query result and your answer, then it would be difficult. You see. Okay. Yeah, Ritika, go ahead. Answer this.
So 2 records will be there, Smith and Scott.
All right. Let's see it. So 2 records are there, Smith and Scott, as Ritika has answered. See the query that we have used for it. Just see the query that we have used. Okay. So this is matches. Then in single quotes, S dot star would mean beginning with S. Okay. S dot star. Now let's take another query. Okay. Let me just dump the relation first for you so that you can see the values. Okay. Now I want to display all the records in which job has the word man in it. Man. The word man could be anywhere in the job. You got my point? I need to write a query in which some text is embedded within the field anywhere, right? So for this we use this dot star, then the text dot star. Note this very carefully. This query, and obviously our job column is $2, so I'll just make it here $2. So now I'm saying from the job column you match and you see whether the string man is embedded there or not. Enclose man between dot star and dot star. How many rows would result? The data is there in front of you. Shaurya Sharma has raised the hand so quickly. Okay. Yes, Shaurya, go ahead.
So 7 fields.
Fields nahi, rows.
Rows also salesmen and managers.
All right. Seems good. Let's see. Your answer seems good. Let's see whether it comes or not. I don't know. Agi 7 देखो 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. Very good, Shaurya. So you've understood the brighter thing is, the thing that you should note is how it has come about. See how it has come about with this query. Simple. Matches. And then if you're looking for a pattern which is anywhere in the string, use that with a dot star pair. Dot star man dot star would mean it will look man embedded anywhere in this field $2. All right, is this clear? Fine. So let's now give you one query to solve. Anyone can solve, right? You can write it. I'll write it here so that you can tell me. Display emp number, e-name, and salary of all people who do not earn a commission. The query is there in front of you, please. You need to answer it by raising your hands. Take your time to, you take some time how to construct the data flow, okay? Remember, projection is usually at the end. That for each should be the third last operation, right? Load is already there, the file is loaded. So you just need to filter, I suppose, and for each. So can you give me the filter command, some of you? Mridul has raised the hand. I'm waiting for some other students also. Money, you answered many times today. Mridul, you also wait. So many other students are there. The query is very simple. I've told you, if you answer, your online exam would be easier. Believe me. Shore also wants to answer. Same people are trying to answer. बाकी बच्चे सुन रहे हैं कि नहीं सुन रहे मेरी लेक्चर को? Okay, let's hear it from Mridul. Yes, Mridul, please answer.
Yes, sir. So first of all, we filter the M.
Okay.
By
I'll
6.
Filter M by, yes.
6 column.
How to
Or,
write it? How to write it?
$6.
$6. Okay. आगे?
Equal to null.
नहीं, मैंने बोले जो null बोले कि not null बोले हैं? चलो null चला दे जो आपने बोला है, ऐसे चला दें? ऐसे चला दें? देखिए क्या कहता है? ठीक है, मान गया आपकी बात. $6 equal to null. तो कितने रोज रिजल्ट होंगे मृदुल फ्रॉम दिस? चेक करके बताओ.
3, 4.
नल मेरे को तो ज्यादा दिख रहे हैं.
सर 5.
चलो डंप कर लेते हैं. आई डोंट नो कि आंसर क्या आएगा. आई एम अभी इसको डंप कर. हाँ 7 है. चलो
यस
देखो आया ही नहीं कुछ. You see sometimes
प्रोजेक्ट
नहीं प्रोजेक्ट क्यों मैं इसी को डंप कर रहा हूँ ना. प्रोजेक्ट तो स्पेसिफिक कॉलम्स होंगे ना. अभी तो सभी कॉलम्स आ जाने चाहिए. ठीक है, गॉट माय पॉइंट. इट हैज नॉट शोन एनीथिंग. सो इसको थोड़ा ठीक करते हैं. ठीक है, इसको ऐसे लिख लें. अगर लिख के देखते हैं क्या होता है. ठीक है, $6 इज नल कर लेते हैं. ठीक है, इक्वल टू. रिमेंबर नल इज नॉट अ स्ट्रिंग. नल इज नॉट अ zero. We studied this. It is in all languages. It cannot be compared with anything. So it should be, we should use the word is or not, is not. Okay, let's see now if we get some answer. I don't know whether we get the answer. Yeah, we get the answer now. So 3 and 4, 7 nulls are there. You see here, use it like this. Okay, and we can use this also. This would mean now we will be looking for the not null values. Okay, so these are 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. So 14 rows are total there in M table. 7 are null, 7 are not null. Okay, and then the remaining thing was, say W is equal to, for each R we needed to generate what? $0, $1, $5 was the salary, right? And then dump W would give us the result. I hope this is clear to you what we are doing. We are just doing two simple operations: load, of course, then filter, and then for each. That is what we have learned today, right? I think that's clear to you. By the way, how many polls we have done today? Can somebody tell me by raising your hands? just to check how much active you people are. How many polls we have done today? Okay, Nikhil is going to tell us. Yes, Nikhil?
3.
3 हुए हैं कि 4?
No sir, 3.
3 हुए हैं. अबे 4th तो देखना पड़ेगा फिर.
Yes.
Where we have missed the 4th one? Okay, the 4th poll is coming in front of you now. Very simple. 100% आंसर आपका आना चाहिए मेरे ख्याल से तो. Very simple. Be very careful. I'm asking this question in Pig, not in SQL, right? Uh, 10 more seconds for you. 10 seconds more for you. 5 seconds. Going to end it now. Sharing the results with you now. So 90% of you are correct that the filter command is used to specify condition retrieval of rows. And some people are saying where it's used in SQL, not in Pig. And check obviously is not used. So some of you are still incorrect. So remember, condition retrieval of rows in Pig is through the filter command that we just used. All right. So let's go with another query. Actually, one thing is left today. We were so engrossed in these commands. Let's work out with our word count program once again. Okay, I think that's also important. So let's get out of this shell first, the grunt shell. Look very carefully. I told you within our Hadoop installation, we get some jar files. Jar files is the Java archive files in which the Java applications are bundled together, deployed together. So one such jar contains many applications which are a part of your MapReduce example sort of thing. Many applications, there is one word count application there also. So it is located, if I go to the directory, it's here. This is your default directory. Below that there is a share directory, again a Hadoop directory and a MapReduce directory. If you move to this directory and you list the files, you will see many jar files here. Okay, we are interested in this jar file. See, Hadoop MapReduce examples 3.2.1.jar. Okay, so MapReduce examples are there, and it contains many classes, many Java classes. It's a Java archive file. So one such class is the word count class. Okay. So what we do is we would execute a word count program using this jar file. Okay, so let me come back to my default home directory and let me start the services. If you need to use the jar files for your MapReduce applications, they should be done in the cluster. They cannot be done on the local file system. So I'll just start the distributed file system services. Okay, and your file that you need to count the words from should be there on the distributed file system. So let's go to our cluster. Let's look for here the local host. Okay, it has started, so we can see the local host, I suppose, and we can browse the file system. Okay, you can see the file system is here. So here is a file mary.txt. Okay, that's the nursery rhyme. I've stored it here, mary.txt in the root. Okay, so let's execute this file now using this jar file. You can note the command. This is the Hadoop jar. Then the complete path. You should go to that path. Okay, then go to the share folder. Again the Hadoop folder. the MapReduce folder, and then the name of the file, it will come like this, right? This is the file which I need to execute. Okay, within this file I have the word count class. Okay, to this word count class I'll pass the file, that is mary.txt, and an output directory. Say I'll output directory as A111. So I'm saying execute the word count application by passing the mary.txt file and store the result in a directory A111, right? So I discussed in the beginning of today's lecture that each line of this file mary.txt would be passed to a mapper. Then after shuffling, it will go to reducers. Okay, so now the files that you get in your directory A111 would be of type part-r, because reducers are going to be there. So let's run this file. Okay, let's hope it runs. Yeah, it has run. Let's see. Can you see, very important, that we saw in our graphic? Can you see it here? I'm highlighting it. How many maps? 4. The input. So 4 lines, 4 map records. How many output records? 22. So all the details are there. You can read it. Okay. Let's go to our distributed file system and see whether A111 is created. You can see A111 is created here. All of you, can you see? If you click on it, there is a success file and there is a part R file now, simply because the reducers are involved. So if I click on this file, if I download this file from here, if I save this file, and if I open this file, it will show you all the words. Can you see which word occurs how many times? It has come here. All right, good enough. So let's go back here. Can we display the file from here? Can somebody help me with a command to display the files from here? All of you have done a tremendous job today, participating and listening and answering. So a few more questions before we end today. Can I display the file which is in A111 folder? The file name is part-r-50. Can I use a command here to display the contents that we just saw? Waiting for your answers, please. That would, just revise your HDFS. I would be, assured that you people know HDFS. Nikhil, no? Nikhil, no answer? Ritika? All of you are tired, I suppose. Look for the answer now. It is very simple, so I'm afraid why you are not able to answer. Display the contents, Hadoop fs-cat, and then the path of the file A, this, and then part-1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it. This will display the contents of the file. Whatever you saw there, it will display on the screen. It says no power. What's the problem? No, we missed a R here. Yeah. Okay. Part-R. Yeah. So we'll see the same thing here now. Do you see? So whatever you see in the web UI, you can do that with your Hadoop commands also. Let's now open up the last thing that we do today. I'll just open up this file, word count. The same 5 lines, 6 lines that I told you. I've again loaded this file mary.txt, and I've used some operators which we'll discuss in our next class to do that word count, just 5 lines program here. Okay, and store the results A111. Now you see this is in the local file system. I'm not using HDFS for it. This is my pig program, pig script. I'm not using HDFS for it. Okay, that's why I don't mention any path here, because if it is HDFS, it should begin with a slash. Okay, so this is my current home folder. So let's see whether I have a file mary.txt here. Yeah, it's there, but not like that. Okay, just a second. Let me just edit this file to see whether it works or not. Just give me a second, all of you. Mary had a little lamb. This piece was white as snow. I'll just change it so that we see how it works. We'll be working it in detail in our next lecture, but let's see whether we can count with our pig script or not. So I'll just do this pig. What is the name of the file? Word count. And we are in the local mode. So -x local, right? Let's see whether it works or not. So let's go to the folder in the local file system, A111. The reducer file is there. Yeah, it's done the same, right? Our pig program has done the same thing here. All of you can see here. You see just the 5 lines of code and it has done it. And it would do it for a 1 GB file also, 1 TB file also, and so on. All right. So I think that's all for today's lecture. And we had a good session discussing about the basics of pig. Now, I'll just put this recording off. I need to discuss something with you guys.